Have you ever noticed how some people seem to gain power over you without even trying? When you let others control your emotions, they start pulling your strings, dictating when you feel proud, when you feel ashamed, when you doubt yourself. But what happens when you stop giving them that power? When you stop reacting to every comment, every cold glance, every manipulation attempt? It's like a snake hidden in tall grass, ignored because it seems harmless. But when it strikes, the prey realizes too late the threat was always there. Or like a storm brewing behind calm skies, ignored until it crashes down. People who feed on controlling your emotions stay quiet until they think you're vulnerable. And when you rise beyond their reach, that's when their frustration truly begins. Because when you stop handing out emotional control, everything shifts. Their anger loses its sting. Their approval loses its grip. Their manipulation falls flat. And without the emotional reaction they crave, they're left facing their own weakness, not yours. So how do you truly stop being controlled by the chaos around you? Stick with me until the end, because once you master this, you won't just protect your emotions, you'll change the way you move through the world forever. Let's get started into what really happens when you take your power back. Number 1. You regain your inner freedom. Let's talk about one of the most powerful shifts you can experience, regaining your inner freedom by taking back control of your emotions. It's easy to fall into the trap of letting other people's actions, words, or moods dictate how you feel. One wrong comment ruins your whole day. One cold glance sends your mind spiraling. One unreturned call leaves you doubting your worth. It happens quietly at first, but over time, you start to realize your emotions aren't yours anymore. They belong to everyone else. And as long as that's the case, you're not truly free. Here's the truth. When you stop giving others the power to dictate how you feel, you reclaim true freedom. You're no longer a puppet tied to the strings of other people's moods or opinions. You're no longer tossed around by their storms, desperately trying to find steady ground. Instead, you become your own anchor. You learn to stand unshaken, no matter what chaos swirls around you. Because true emotional strength isn't about avoiding pain, it's about choosing not to be controlled by it. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." And what's more beyond your control than the thoughts and actions of others? You can't force someone to respect you. You can't make someone appreciate you. But you can control how much power you give them over your peace of mind. And once you truly grasp that, the game changes forever. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Emily, spent years letting her boss control her emotions. One harsh comment from him would leave her spiraling for days. One small slight would wreck her confidence. It got to the point where her entire sense of self was tied to his approval. But one day, Emily had enough. She started focusing on what she could control: her effort, her attitude, her response. She realized that no matter how unfair or unkind he was, she didn't have to absorb it. Slowly, she built an emotional wall, not to shut people out, but to protect her peace. Over time, something amazing happened. His comments lost their power. He didn't change, but she did. And with that change, she found a freedom she didn't even know she was missing. So how do you regain your inner freedom? First, recognize what's within your control: your emotions, your reactions, your mindset. Second, refuse to let anyone else's chaos become your chaos. Stay rooted in your own sense of peace. And finally, practice emotional detachment. Not from caring, but from over-investing in things you cannot control. At the end of the day, your peace is your responsibility. When you stop letting others control your emotions, you don't just protect your happiness, you reclaim your freedom. And once you taste that kind of freedom, you'll never let it go again. Number 2, you become immune to manipulation. Let's talk about one of the most liberating shifts that happens when you stop letting people control your emotions. You become immune to manipulation. Manipulators thrive on emotional reactions. They poke, prod, and pressure, hoping you'll crack. They want you to get angry, feel guilty, seek their approval, or question yourself. Your emotional responses are their fuel. But the moment you stop reacting, something incredible happens. Their influence crumbles. Here's the truth. People who once thrived on your emotional reactions suddenly lose their grip. Without your anger to exploit, without your fear to manipulate, without your constant need for their approval, they have nothing left to grab onto. It's like trying to steer a ship with no sails. You become unshakable, unmovable, and most importantly, untouchable. And once you reach that point, manipulative people either have to confront their own behavior or they simply move on to easier targets. This is where Stoic wisdom comes into play. Seneca once said, "The wise man is invulnerable because he relies on reason, not on emotion." Think about that for a second. A wise person doesn't react based on impulse. They don't allow their peace to be dictated by someone else's games. They choose calm over chaos, reason over reactivity. And in doing so, they become immune to emotional traps designed to control them. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Kevin, used to have a boss who loved playing mind games. One week, he'd praise Kevin. The next, he'd criticize him harshly in front of everyone. And every time, Kevin would react, overthinking, stressing, trying harder just to win back approval. It was an exhausting cycle. But one day, Kevin decided to stop playing. He still worked hard, but he detached emotionally. Praise didn't inflate him. Criticism didn't deflate him. He focused purely on facts, not feelings. And you know what happened? His boss lost all power over him. Without Kevin's emotional reactions, the manipulation attempts became obvious and powerless. Kevin didn't just survive that toxic environment, he rose above it. So how do you become immune to manipulation? First, recognize when someone is fishing for a reaction. Manipulators aren't always loud. Sometimes they operate through guilt, fear, or subtle jabs. Second, anchor yourself in reason, not emotion. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Before responding. And finally, choose calm every time. Your stillness will frustrate them more than any argument ever could. At the end of the day, your emotions are your fortress. When you stop handing people the keys, you stop letting them invade your peace. And once they realize they can't control you anymore, you won't just survive manipulation, you'll render it powerless. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 3, you gain clarity in every situation. Let's talk about one of the greatest gifts you unlock when you stop letting others control your emotions. You gain clarity in every situation. When emotions aren't running wild, your mind becomes sharp, like a sword freshly honed. You no longer react impulsively. You no longer get blinded by anger, fear, or the desperate need for approval. Instead, you see people and situations exactly as they are. Not better, not worse. Just the truth. And that kind of clarity, it changes everything. Here's the truth. Without emotional fog clouding your mind, you see reality with clean eyes. You notice the small details, the hesitation in someone's voice, the inconsistencies in their stories, the true intentions behind their actions. Things that once confused you now make perfect sense. Instead of getting swept up in drama, you recognize it for what it is: noise. Instead of getting manipulated by guilt or flattery, you assess calmly, act wisely, and walk away when necessary. Calmness sharpens your judgment like nothing else can. This is where Stoic wisdom steps in. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The mind freed from passion is a fortress. No force can take it." Think about that. Your mind, when freed from emotional chaos, becomes an unbreakable fortress. No manipulation, no betrayal, no petty drama can storm your gates. When you rule your emotions, you rule your life. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Rachel, used to get caught up in every emotional whirlwind at her workplace. One rumor would throw her off. One rude comment would send her spiraling. She'd spend hours worrying, doubting, and second-guessing. But when Rachel started practicing emotional detachment, everything changed. She stopped reacting immediately. She paused, observed, and thought before speaking or acting. And something amazing happened. She started seeing things that had been hidden before. She noticed how certain co-workers used drama to deflect from their own mistakes. She realized which people were sincere and which were just pretending. And because she wasn't clouded by emotion anymore, she made better decisions, not just at work, but in every part of her life. So, how do you gain this level of clarity? First, slow down your reactions. You don't have to respond to everything instantly. Second, observe more and absorb less. Watch people's patterns, not just their words. And third, anchor yourself in logic, not feelings. Feel your emotions, but don't let them blind your judgment. At the end of the day, clarity is the natural reward for mastering your emotions. When you refuse to let anger, fear, or approval-seeking cloud your mind, you don't just survive life's storms, you navigate them with precision. And in that stillness, you'll find the kind of power that no one can take from you. Number 4, you set unbreakable boundaries. Let's talk about one of the strongest shifts that happens when you master your emotions. You set unbreakable boundaries. Before emotional control, boundaries often feel shaky. You say yes when you want to say no. You let guilt, anger, or pressure push you into decisions that don't align with your values. You bend yourself to fit into spaces where you don't belong. And every time you betray your own limits to please others, a small piece of your peace gets chipped away. Here's the truth. Emotional control naturally builds stronger, healthier boundaries. When you're no longer ruled by fear of rejection or the need for approval, you start responding from strength, not weakness. Guilt trips don't move you. Anger doesn't shake you. Manipulative pressure doesn't corner you. You recognize what's yours to carry and what's not. You become rooted in self-respect. And once you set boundaries from that place of calm inner strength, they stop feeling like walls meant to keep people out. They start feeling like gates designed to protect the peace within. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes essential. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." If your emotions are easily hijacked by others, you are never truly free. True freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about standing firm in who you are, regardless of what others want from you. Boundaries are a form of freedom. They declare without needing to shout, "I value myself enough not to let your chaos define my peace." Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Jason, struggled for years to say no. Whether it was extra work dumped on him, toxic friendships draining him, or family demands crossing his limits, Jason would silently take it all. And each time he felt more resentful, more burned out. But once Jason began practicing emotional self-control, everything shifted. Instead of reacting with frustration or guilt, he learned to pause, breathe, and respond thoughtfully. He started saying no without apologizing. He started expressing his needs without feeling selfish. And the incredible part? The people who truly cared about him respected those boundaries. The ones who didn't, they faded away, and Jason realized he was better off without them. So how do you set unbreakable boundaries? First, master your emotional triggers. If you stay calm, you stay clear. Second, be direct but respectful. A clear boundary doesn't need long explanations. And finally, protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. At the end of the day, boundaries aren't barriers to connection. They're bridges to self-respect. When you control your emotions, you don't just create stronger boundaries, you create a life where your peace is guarded by strength, not fear, and nothing feels more powerful than that. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a thank God and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 5. You find peace in chaos. Let's talk about one of the rarest, most powerful transformations you experience when you master your emotions. You find peace in chaos. Life doesn't get easier. The storms don't suddenly stop. People still disappoint you. Plans still fall apart. Challenges still show up at your door. But something inside you changes. Instead of reacting wildly to every gust of wind, you become the steady ground. Instead of being thrown by every wave, you walk through the storm untouched. Your emotional stability becomes your armor, and no chaos can penetrate it. Here's the truth. Even when the world throws storms your way, you move through them without losing yourself. Where others panic, you stay calm. Where others lash out, you breathe deeply. Where others crumble under pressure, you rise with quiet strength. You realize that peace doesn't come from controlling the external world. It comes from mastering the internal one. And once you find that kind of inner stillness, the chaos around you loses its power to control you. This is where Stoic wisdom lights the way. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water." Visualize that for a moment. The cliff doesn't try to stop the ocean. It doesn't try to change the waves. It simply stands, unmoved, letting the storm exhaust itself. And in doing so, it remains invincible. That's what emotional mastery looks like: unshaken, unbothered, unbreakable. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Ethan, went through one of the toughest years of his life. He lost his job unexpectedly, faced health issues, and dealt with the betrayal of a close friend, all within a few months. Before, he would have fallen apart, letting anger and fear consume him. But this time, Ethan had been practicing emotional discipline. He didn't panic. He didn't lash out. He acknowledged the pain, yes, but he didn't let it define him. He focused only on what he could control: his mindset, his next step, his peace. And slowly but surely, he rebuilt everything stronger than before. People around him were stunned, not because bad things didn't happen, but because he stayed unshaken through it all. So, how do you find peace in chaos? First, Accept that storms are inevitable. Resistance creates suffering. Acceptance creates strength. Second, anchor yourself in your inner values, not external outcomes. And third, remember that chaos outside doesn't mean chaos inside, unless you allow it. At the end of the day, your emotional stability is your true shield. When you become the steady cliff against life's relentless waves, you don't just survive chaos, you transcend it. And that kind of peace, it's a power no storm can ever take away. Number 6. You make decisions without regret. Let's talk about one of the most powerful benefits of mastering your emotions. You make decisions without regret. When emotions are running high, it's tempting to act impulsively. You quit a job in anger. You say things you don't mean during a fight. You make promises you can't keep because you feel guilty. And in the heat of the moment, it feels right. But later, regret creeps in. You wonder, why did I react like that? Why didn't I think it through? And that regret weighs heavier than almost any mistake. Here's the truth. Emotional decisions often lead to regret. When you act purely from a place of anger, fear, or desperation, your vision narrows. You don't see the full picture. You don't weigh the long-term consequences. You're just reacting, not responding. But when you master your emotions, something incredible happens. You start making decisions rooted in wisdom, not impulse. You pause, you think, you choose with clarity. And because your choices come from a calm, grounded place, they stand the test of time. This is exactly what Stoic wisdom teaches us. Seneca once said, "Deliberate calmly, and only then act with resolution." That's the Stoic way, not rushing, not reacting, but deliberating carefully and then acting decisively. It's about giving yourself the gift of reflection before you commit. Because when you choose calmly, you don't just make better decisions, you make decisions you can live with, proudly, without second-guessing yourself later. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Claire, almost left her company in a fit of rage. She was overlooked for a promotion she worked hard for. In the moment, anger took over. She drafted a fiery resignation email and almost hit send, but Claire had been practicing emotional discipline. She gave herself 24 hours before making any big decision. During that time, she cooled down, reflected, and realized something. She didn't actually want to leave. She wanted growth. So instead of quitting, she requested a meeting with her manager, calmly expressed her aspirations, and ended up getting new opportunities she hadn't even considered before. If she had acted on impulse, she would have burned bridges and regretted it. But because she acted with calmness and clarity, she built a stronger future for herself. So, how do you start making decisions without regret? First, pause before reacting. Give your emotions time to settle. Second, reflect on long-term consequences, not just immediate feelings. And third, act only when your mind is steady, not when it's stormy. At the end of the day, your calmness isn't just your peace, it's your greatest decision-making tool. When you act from wisdom instead of impulse, you don't just avoid regret, you build a life that you're proud to live. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 7. You inspire others through your presence. Let's talk about one of the most beautiful ripple effects of mastering your emotions. You inspire others through your presence. You don't have to preach. You don't have to convince anyone. You don't even have to say much. Just by being calm, centered, and unshaken in a world full of chaos, you become a living example of what strength really looks like. Your emotional mastery speaks louder than any words ever could. Here's the truth. Your emotional mastery becomes a silent inspiration. In a world drowning in reactions, where outrage is common and impulsiveness is celebrated, calmness is rare, and rare things are magnetic. People are naturally drawn to those who don't lose themselves when situations get tough. They may not understand it at first. They may even test you, try to shake you, but eventually they start wondering, how does he stay so composed? How does she stay so peaceful when everyone else is falling apart? And without even trying, you give them permission to find that same strength within themselves. This is exactly what Stoic wisdom teaches us. Epictetus once said, "First, be calm yourself, then you can calm others." True leadership doesn't come from shouting orders or demanding attention. It comes from embodying the virtues you wish others to embrace. Your presence becomes your influence. Your calm becomes their anchor. And without even realizing it, you start changing the emotional climate around you just by mastering yourself. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Ben, worked in a high-pressure corporate environment where emotions ran high. People yelled in meetings. Blame got tossed around like a hot potato. Deadlines created panic. But Ben was different. He never raised his voice. He never got defensive. No matter how chaotic things got, Ben stayed composed. At first, people mistook his calmness for weakness. But over time, they started going to him when they needed advice. They started modeling their responses after his, and eventually, Ben wasn't just surviving in that environment. He was quietly leading it, all without ever trying to control anyone else. His calm presence did what no title or authority ever could. So how do you inspire others through your emotional mastery? First, focus entirely on mastering yourself. Don't aim to teach anyone. Just live your peace. Second, stay steady even when others are emotional. Your calmness will naturally stand out. And third, trust that true influence is silent but powerful. People feel it even when they don't fully understand it. At the end of the day, you don't inspire others by telling them how to be. You inspire them by showing them how peace looks in action. And in a reactive world, your calm presence becomes a light people can't help but gravitate toward. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply.